thank you so much, Prof. Dr. Azam, and also IAIS for giving me this opportunity to able to speak and share a little bit from the Christian perspective, considering the fact that today we are talking about a multi-dimensional perspective. I think it's rather historic. Perhaps I think one of the very rare occasions where Christians speak up on this issue. Let me just put it very clear. I'm speaking on behalf of ANCOM, which is the Association of NextGen Christians of Malaysia, and not CPHM. I'm also the founder and the advisor to CPHM, which is Christians for Peace and Harmony in Malaysia, which is a different body that promotes issues of peace and harmony in Malaysia alone, and doesn't touch on overseas issue or international issue. My ANCOM is a different breed. Most of us who belong to ANCOM are from the Malaysian Christian Youth Association under the Ministry of Youth. And we are generally second generation Christians. That's why we call ourselves NextGen. Because my father is a Christian, I'm the second generation. And we have branches all over the major capitals in the state, in the country. And we do represent, I think on the whole, over 600 over churches within the country, both in Malaya, the Peninsula, and also in Sabah and Sarawak. Okay, first off, I think it is quite interesting because in 2016, at the United Nations, the Israeli ambassador challenged the UN General Assembly when they were talking about, voted unanimously against the building of Jewish settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. And the Israeli ambassador to the UN took out the Bible and waved it, and he gave them a lecture about these thousands of years of history about what the Bible has to say about the claim to the land. Essentially, there are three areas which I think I want to address, because I think these are the areas which Christians use to perhaps justify and become the basis for the claim, the biblical claim, so to speak. And we find that the theology that they talk about is rather flawed, because it is a purported theology of the land, or a biblical theology about the land, the promised land. And more often than not, they always talk about that it is given in terms of perpetuity. The Bible sometimes use the word forever. And Christians latch on that word and they begin to say that it is forever and forever in terms of linear time. But if you were to read the Bible clearly, throughout all the books of Genesis, the term forever, when it is used, it is always accompanied by conditions. There is a conditionality in the gift. That means whatever gift, there are strings attached. There are conditions attached. And these conditions are very important. Most often, many Christians just gloss over it and say that it's given away. That's it. This is Israel's land. But the conditions are very important, because Christianity believes in a covenant relationship between God and man. And that covenant relationship necessarily means that there must be reciprocal commitment from man to God. And this is clearly shown throughout the Bible, where even in the Old Testament, about circumcision, about God asking Abraham, you have to be faithful, you have to be just, you have to be righteous, you have to obey my commandments, and everything else talks about the conduct of the people of Abraham. And in fact, God in the Bible, I mean, when you look at some of those verses, it keeps saying that first you must keep my commandment. And in fact, very clearly, in one particular passage in the Bible, in Leviticus, specifically talks about the land. Let me just quote to you. It says that, do not, Leviticus 18, 24 to 28, it says, do not make yourselves unclean, for by all these nations that I'm driving out before you, they have become unclean, and the land has become unclean, so that I punish their iniquity, and the land vomited out all these inhabitants. So, be warned, you shall likewise keep my statutes, my laws, and my rules, and do none of these abominations, lest the land will vomit you out as well, and because you have made it unclean, as was done to the nations that was before you. You see, the promise of the land, and the land itself does not tolerate ungodliness, does not tolerate disobedience. Holiness is a requirement. And most of all, the Israelis and the Jews were expected to practice justice, because it is only by doing justice that they will live and inherit the land, according to Deuteronomy. And an interesting passage also in Jeremiah chapter 7, it says to the Jews, because if you truly repent your ways and your deeds, and if you truly execute justice one with another, and if you do not oppress the sojourners, the aliens, the strangers, the fatherless, or the widow, or shed innocent blood in this place, then I, God said, will let you dwell in this place, in the land that I gave of old to your father. So there are a lot of conditions, and the practice of justice, the principles of justice, even back then, was very important. Social justice laws were paramount for the Christian understanding of the theology. So that is where Christians need to understand the whole context of this. The land, whatever it was to be given, it has to be a place of justice, a place of equality, where the powerless and the innocent are protected. And again, this was emphasized in the Bible. So really, there is no such thing as cheap grace. And God gives and holds all those who receive his gift as to be accountable with the gift. It is not so much that the land was given to Israel. It is more of Israel was assigned to the land to do good. And just like Adam and Eve, as Christians believe, forfeited the right to Eden when they disobeyed God, did Israel forfeit the right to the land when they also disobeyed? The second assumption that Christians believe in this claim to the promised land is that they talk about the promised land, and it is also very confusing because in the Bible, where are the boundaries of the promised land? In the book of Numbers, it talks about boundaries stretching from the south, from Kadesh Barnea, all the way up to the north, called Lebo Hamath, covers a lot of land. And in another passage in the Bible, it talks about God say, I will give you this land from the river of Egypt to the river, the great river of Euphrates, from river to river. Now, no matter which scenario you take, if the Jews or Israel is to be consistent, or Christians are to be consistent in using the Bible to justify the claim to the land, then they might as well claim sovereignty over Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. That's what you must say, well, claim everything. Why just Palestine? So there must be consistency in using the Bible. Otherwise, you cannot use it to justify the claim. And thirdly, lastly, the claim to Jerusalem is also based on an assumption that the modern state of Israel today is the direct continuation of the Israel of the Bible. This is a pretty big leap to assume that the Israel in the Bible is the same as Israel today. It is a quantum leap. And it is a major leap which cannot be substantiated. Because not all Jews today are direct descendants from Abraham. Even according to the Bible, just because you have an offspring of Abraham, it doesn't mean that he is a Jew or accepted as one. I mean, in the Bible, names like Ishmael and Esau are not considered as the children of Abraham, just because they are his offspring. And there are also people who are born outside the family of Israel, but they are considered Jews. Ruth comes to mind because this great woman called Ruth, she is not a Jew, she's a Moabite. But in the Bible, she's regarded as the family of Israel, as a Jew, despite her different descendants. And in fact, the Bible itself is full of intermarriages. Judah married a Canaanite, Joseph married an Egyptian, Moses married a Midianite, Solomon married many, many foreign women. So, if at all anybody were to say that I'm a direct descendant of Abraham, it's going to be very difficult to prove, because I don't think there's anybody today who has this pure DNA coming all the way from Abraham. So, what about those who were converted to Judaism later on? So, if at all, there are many of these things which are not consistent in terms of the basis of the theology to claim the land. And even if I do err, I think I do so in illustrious company, because these are the views that are not just stated by me today here, but these are also views stated by many great Christian thinkers, ranging from John Stock, ranging from Tony Campolo, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and many other Christian leaders, including Geoff Tunnicliffe, who is the Secretary General of the World Evangelical Alliance, a world body for Christian churches. So all in conclusion, what ANCOM, or what I feel Christians should do, is that we cannot simply attach a biblical and theological legitimacy to an infringement which infringe on the rights of other people. We cannot use the Bible to justify political and claims over land and for political agenda, as was done by President Trump himself. There's a reason why we issued a statement to that effect. So that is all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.